bid her body to the grave, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust.
This is a story about the Fair Hope Benevolent Society, a little-known organization that was created in the horse and buggy days of 1888 to aid the sick and bury the dead. At the time of Fair Hope's creation, benevolent societies were not unusual in America. In fact, Protestants and Jews and countless immigrants organized benevolent or mutual aid societies in their respective communities to feed the hungry, help the needy, and avoid the shame of a pauper's grave. But there is something that sets Fair Hope apart from all other benevolent societies, and perhaps has sustained it. The splendid contradictions of deity and the devil, preaching and prostitution, gospel and guns, devotion and drugs, heaven and hell. In order to understand the contradictions of Fair Hope, we must revisit the most important single event in American history: slavery.
My grandmother, she came to live with us, and she would tell us all about slavery. She was sold from Virginia into Hale County.
The experience in slavery was almost unimaginable. The fact is, as the Supreme Court said in the Dred Scott case, black man has no right which the white man is bound to respect. Blacks were nothing more than property.
They would sell them like you would sell animals. They said they had a platform. They would tell you to get on that platform, and they would tell you, stand up straight. They'd have a whip.
Different farm, big farms, they said they'll bid on the slaves. And the highest bidder would be the one get that slave, for the work on their farm.
My grandmother and her mother were sold together, and she was thankful for that. And she always, praised God for being sold with her mother. She doesn't know who bought the other member of the family. She never did see the rest of them no more.
Slave owners are separating families, even to the point of exporting human beings to other states. This was a major problem in the Upper South.
My grandmother said that it was a man that he wanted to leave, and he ran away. And they caught him and found him and brought him back, and he ran away again. And they caught him and brought him back, and the next time he ran away, she said they caught him and got a knife and sliced his feet. And then he tried to crawl away.
There's never been a slavery in the history of the world quite like this slavery. We can talk about the physical brutality, but the worst thing about this slavery had to do with taking the identity. First, they took your name. Then they took your language. Then they took your religion. Then they took your family. Then they took your history. Nothing is more powerful than taking your identity, because when your identity gets messed up, it's passed on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation.
In 1865, millions of newly freed slaves began to roam the antebellum countryside with no money, no food, and no shelter.
Some people, the first thing they thought of is, I need to go find my child that has been sold into slavery somewhere else. Or I need to go find that woman or that man that I married by jumping over the broomstick in violation of the laws of the man. I want to go and find my family.
The freed slaves' immediate rush of jubilation soon faded because they realized that they had no possible way to survive in this new land of liberty.
After slavery ended, you had 4 million African Americans on this planet, in this country, who had never been freed, who had never known what freedom was like, who had endured 246 years of slavery, and after slavery ended, they handed us a document called the Emancipation Proclamation and said we were free in a capitalistic society without capital.
The downside of emancipation is that the slave masters no longer had responsibility for the ordinary business and family affairs of the slaves.
You know, back in that time, it's not like it is now, you know. Sometimes they couldn't hardly get food. Sometimes they couldn't hardly get clothes, you know. It was rough.
If slaves were emancipated and they had no employment, they did not own any land, they did not own any home, they had no cash, how could they make it?
Everything the freed slaves faced was magnified by the fact that the entire financial and economic structure of the South had crumbled after the devastation of the Civil War.
There are individual accounts of Southern whites that are displaced by the war. They face starvation. They face the ravages of winter. They're returning to cities like Atlanta that have been bombarded, or they're returning to farms that were in the middle of a battlefield and happened to be burned down.
Recently discovered documents reveal that Abraham Lincoln's solution for a post-slavery America was to ship freed slaves to a new life on the sugar and cotton plantations in the Caribbean.
We have documentary evidence of Lincoln engaged in diplomatic negotiations with other governments around the world, trying to seek out a place that would take the slave population. But the interesting thing about Lincoln's motivation, he is afraid of violence in the post-war South. And he believes that the political situation that is going to emerge in the post-war South, regardless of what is done policy-wise out of Washington, will end up in a scenario where the former slave owners, the white majority, would end up oppressing the black minority.
But for the newly freed slaves, America was home, and they were determined to stay.
In the post-emancipation years, you know, the entire world is watching the free black population, because this is the chance to disprove centuries of racist beliefs, racial theories that said, you know, these people are inferior, they are unfit to take care of themselves, therefore the plantation system was a positive good, is what some of the Southerners called it at the time.
Like the immigrant and ethnic communities that had come before them, the newly freed slaves came together and formed benevolent societies throughout the South.
A benevolent society was a self-help group. It would provide some sort of aid if a family in their group of dues-paying members had a terrible illness and they couldn't afford a doctor.
The former slaves had to assume responsibility for burying their dead, as they also had the responsibility of providing for their living.
If you had an old barn or old building out there somewhere, they would go out there and get planks off that building and make a box. And then they dump you in that box and then carry you out there and dump you in the ground.
Well, that Benevolent Society, like I said, was for the aged, the sick, and very dead. It was way back then, it was tearing boughs off a barn, fixing coffins, the burial.
There was a keen focus on burial because black people had witnessed firsthand what the oppressor had done to them. Black people got off slave ships in Virginia. They came from Virginia to the Black Belt of Alabama in what is called coffles. Some would be sick and die along the ways, and they would watch the masters uncuff them and leave their bodies along the wayside.
Most of their lives, they were not treated with dignity. This was that one opportunity for that person who had lived a tough life, a rough life, to at least be put away in a dignified manner.
When you live in a society where you are completely devalued and dehumanized, the one part of your existence where you could give value to someone who had no value in law or the culture or in the environment is at the burial of a loved one.
In the days following slavery and in the days of Reconstruction, African Americans didn't have money to bury each other, so they had to bury a society. And there were quite a few around. Almost every community had a burial society.
Black folk during that time didn't have anything else. They were denied the privileges of life insurance, so this was the only way they had to support one another.
It empowered the black community to know that you can collect the nickels and dimes from people who didn't have much more than a nickel and dime, and then you could actually be a part of this. And this thing was run completely by black folks.
It was a crude way of doing things. Blacks had very little organizational skills, but they were able to put the pennies in the jar, month by month, year by year, accumulated enough money to maybe pay $10 to $15 to bury their dead.
In the community of Fawnsdale, which is by the late 19th century getting a bit isolated, cotton production is nowhere near what it had been at pre-war levels, and it's not going to come back anytime soon. It's a community that needs to provide for itself because nobody else is. People who felt that need and knew there was no other way to provide would have come together to form this Fair Hope Benevolent Society.
It started back in 1888 in September, where there were 6 million met. And they decided to come up with a plan in which they could bury their dead.
My great-granddaddy, Austin Turner, was one of the persons who started that society. They saw the need years ago to have some kind of community group that could do something to help people in the community.
He, along with other men, were encouraged to organize a system so that their people would be cared for.
And they came up with this idea of the Fair Hope Benevolent Society. They wanted something that was fair to everybody, that could give people hope.
The Fair Hope Benevolent Society gave its members their first tests of leadership. The members, though they had no education, drafted and adopted a constitution, a strict system of taxation and dues, and they even elected a queen.
When it first started years ago, they didn't have any crowns. And the crown idea was originated by me. I just figured if you had a queen, you should have a crown for her. So I just took it on my own to get the crown and presented it to the society. So I am the reigning queen today, Ora M. Burks.
They had the president, the vice president, secretary, treasurer, and and they had, it was organized.
This is the Fair Hope Benevolent Society Hall. The meeting has been going on here for over 100 years.
They would meet every fourth Sunday.
If you missed the meeting, you'd have to have a excuse. Well, they'll ask you why you wasn't here at the last meeting. You couldn't just say, I was tired, I had to go someplace else or something like that. And if you didn't have a legitimate excuse, you had to pay.
When we get there, we start a meeting, we pray and we sing, and then we take up dues.
I think the dues were, 10 cents a month or something?
It was called a nickel and dime society.
And they didn't force anybody to stay in as long as if they wanted to pay their dues, they did. If they wanted to stop, they could. If they stopped, they just lost their membership.
You had 3 months, get 3 months behind, and you didn't come up and pay it, catch it up, then you was out. We had service, and we had a marshal to keep quiet. Everybody had to be quiet in that service.
And he had a long stick, and he would walk up and down the aisle in the building.
The old man would get around with his long stick, and he would go over that floor and bump, and you better be quiet.
And if anybody was talking, and then he'd tell them to hush, and if they didn't hush, then they'd charge 10 cents. They kept the rules good, because if they didn't, they would have to pay for it, And then, money was scarce back in those days. You just wouldn't believe, just a dime or something like that. That meant a lot to them.
the money that they would collect for penalty dues would go into the society. It would go into the society, their funds.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Although Fair Hope members had no experience in embalming, they developed unique burial practices that were shrouded in mystery and myth.
And way back then, when I was a boy, there was a man they called Paul Grimm. He was the horn blower. When a member of the society died, he would blow the horn. You could hear that horn when a member died. He said, one of Fair Hope members dead. So why? I said, listen, come out. You could hear him. Doo, 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 doo. Yeah, one of Fair Hope members dead.
And the member died on that Fair Hope. They used to blow a horn. Mom used to tell us, hush, be quiet, somebody dead. They didn't have no funeral homes then. They used to swab them at the house after they passed and lay them on, put them on an ironing boat.
Called the cooling boat.
Called the cooling boat. This was a wood ironing boat.
And they would put put some salt in a table salt and a saucer. Instead of the, and that up here in the middle of the chest up there, I don't know what that was for, but that's what they would do.
The Egyptians would embalm each organ of the body, either in salt or with soda. When you think of preservation, even in our area, a lot of people, they didn't have refrigerators, didn't have cooling places to store our food, and so we preserve with salt. So if you're thinking of salt as being a preservative agent, then I think we could rightly assume that someone might think a jar of salt would help preserve the body.
If you pass and your eyes didn't close up, they would place the penny over the eye to keep it closed.
You bring them to the house. Just let them stay at the house. And the members gonna come and sit up till the next morning. And they was gonna bury them the next day. They was doing my grandfather.
I was told that back in time, when a person would die, people would gather and they would sit up with the body that night to see if the person would wake up. And so we had wakes. They would simply stay there with that body all night.
And they got a cemetery out there. It's owned by Fair Hope Benevolent Society. And so if you a member, you could be buried out there free.
So they just had a wagon.
That's
they
right.
hitched the wagon up and put
But
the
I was
body in
scared
the
of dead
wagon and
folks.
carried to the cemetery.
Yeah, I'm scared of dead people. That time.
Have somebody to dig the grave and they put you in that box and
Right.
put you in the ground.
Right.
Cover you up.
That's right.
That's it. No marker, no hole,
Right.
nothing.
Now his grave's all up through there.
How do you know where they are now?
You don't know unless you see a sink. You might have been stepping in one here. Because you can't tell what those graves were, because right in here was a row of tunnels right in there. I showed them to you. They had them handmade headstones. There's a lot of them in here now is on top of those deep graves.
In addition to burying the dead, the Fair Hope Benevolent Society cared for the living. Its members formed a sick committee to watch and pray over the infirmed. This sick committee was their only form of health care.
It wasn't in a hospital or nursing home or anything like that at that time. If a person got sick, he was at home. The society, they had people that will see after.
They're sick committee. If anybody gets sick, you go there and tell them about it. And they're supposed to go and see the sick.
If you got sick, you would let the chairman know that, you're ill or something. And then she would get 2 or more people to stay with you day or night.
Whenever some of them taken sick, they cook and bring those people something of it and see to their house cleaned up. See to them being clean.
They pay you so much if you're sick for, well, it wasn't much then, just about 50 cents a week or something like that. And sometimes some people, they would try to stay sick longer than that, to get the the money, but the stick committee chairman of the board had to see to it, that they wasn't sick that long.
Even though we didn't have a lot of money, whenever somebody needed help in this community, people in this community supported each other.
Fair Hope's ideals of hard work and self-help even led it to form a school. As the Fair Hope Constitution proudly states, the members wanted their children to learn their ABCs, which is something they could not do because they had to go to the fields.
Burial societies supported education by, from various times, making contributions to the all-black and inferior schools. It would have been rare for such a society to actually create a school.
We were out in the country, and if you were going to get any kind of education, it wasn't any school near around. Like Farnsdale is approximately 4 miles from here. Uniontown is approximately 5 miles. And it was no way to get any kind of education unless you had some means of doing it in your neighborhood.
That school was the only school that they had in this community for years. My aunt, Nanny Zimmerman, was the teacher, the principal.
It was a school sitting here. I went to school here about 3 or 4 years in this same little spot here.
It was from 1 through the 6th grade, and I graduated from there.
This was the school in this community. Everybody went to school here.
But it was not all work and no play. Fair Hope members established a tradition of coming together to celebrate the anniversary of their beloved Fair Hope. They called it the celebration, or the society turnout.
Everybody was farmers here. In September, this was a time that your crops will have been gathered, and it was time to celebrate.
They wasn't allowed to get out of that line. And they started to march them.
I was like 3 or 4. We would stand by the wayside and watch and look and just, see all of our kin people on that line. And it was such, it was the biggest day of my life at that time.
The ladies wore white, and the men wore black suits with a white apron and gloves on the head.
And if you were out of uniform, you had to pay a fine.
We marches and sing. March from out there in the woods to the society.
It was just so beautiful. It was just beautiful then. They could just sing and just march on up.
After they get through, with the fro and everything, then they serve the food.
They would cook, and they would have tables that would serve. They would serve food and things.
Everybody get together and they go out there and sit and eat and have a good time.
It was the biggest day for the community.
They go to the field and all the year and working hard and everything. So when societies have that celebration, they look forward to it. They enjoy it.
For over 70 years, Fair Hope stayed true to its mission and prospered. In fact, its prominence in the community of Farnsdale, Alabama, was rivaled only by that of the black church. But then, times began to change. In the 1940s, scores of Fair Hope members, like many African Americans, uprooted themselves from the South and migrated north. It was called the Great Migration.
The people here, they were poor farmers. Most of the people living in this community now, they're still very poor. Because most of the people that are doing better, that are living better, they have migrated and they have moved other places.
Birmingham was then the headquarters for United States Steel in the South. There were lots of job opportunities for unskilled workers at the time.
I was born and raised here. It wasn't very much for young men to do at that time, no jobs and things. And so we didn't have very much to live on. And I knew that there was a better way.
When people grew up in a neighborhood, and then they stayed in that neighborhood, and their children stayed in that neighborhood, everybody knew each other and created a special kind of stability. But when you move out of that neighborhood and move over somewhere else, that created all kinds of dynamics that caused the community to end up breaking down.
Benevolent societies in the South were affected by Southerners who migrated north.
With the gradual migration of its members, the society turnout began to serve a different purpose, a chance for those who had migrated to return like prodigal sons and daughters to the community they loved, a homecoming of sorts.
People who had left home, who had gone to Birmingham or Cleveland or wherever they had gone to, Mobile, would come home and they would come to visit to see other members of the family that they hadn't seen because they were gone away.
Be glad when that time of year comes for to get change going. We're going up to Fair Hope Turn Out. That's what we call it. Well, going to Fair Hope, that sure is this Sunday. Yeah, child, I'm going too. And you just look, they be rolled on.
My dad, friends, all of the kids that he grew up with would be there. And he would go around meeting his cousins, and they would be having the greatest of time.
Most of them moved away up north and elsewhere, but they always come back once a year on one Sunday.
During the society turnout, the Fair Hope community heeded the broadest invitation in the Bible.
Whosoever will, let them come. Whosoever would, did come.
They bring friends, or they bring their cousin or whatever, the family, they married, and then that family that didn't know anything about it would come.
And a curious thing happened. Some folks came to celebrate in the society hall with the saints. Others came to celebrate in the woods with the sinners.
As a little girl growing up there, I do know that moonshine was being sold in the woods, and that was in the 40s, 1940s, 50s.
I did saw a guy with the moonshine in bottles selling it. I saw that with my own eyes. They was playing the blues songs, and a lot of people was out there dancing. They wasn't dancing with no certain ones. Just a lot of people's out there dancing.
At that time, it was two old ladies. They would sell fish. Paying about a nickel a sandwich at that time, 10 cents a nickel.
I think it's somewhere between 1945 or 46. We'd kind of caught on from that. People started having tables and selling.
After I got grown and I was married, I was coming over here, and I would go in the church. And most time I would be down in those woods.
Can you tell us what you were doing in the woods?
I was down there dancing.
It was family fun. These were family people. We all knew each other. You brought somebody else in, family people. And yeah, having a drink or so, and having a table where you can get a fish sandwich and what have you. Other people may have come in there, but not vendors, having vendors that know nothing about it.
See, the society during that time, nobody was taking advantage. We didn't have vendors coming in here doing stuff. It's just that the members maybe would have a table out there to sell stuff. That went on for a long time.
In the 40s, we'll enjoy singing and praying, preaching.
And then things got complicated.
Most of those benevolent societies fell by the wayside in the 50s and 60s and some into the 70s. The benevolent societies led directly to the creation of black insurance companies, which were the first insurance companies to provide coverage for blacks. And then as the civil rights movement gained momentum, the courts ultimately ruled that insurance companies, just as any other companies, could not refuse to contract with blacks simply because they were blacks.
When these insurance companies began to sell the barrier policy, the little barrier policy that had not been in existence before, that began to take a toll on the benevolent societies.
Dad had all of us in the Benevolent Society. And he kept us in for a while. But after we got married, we were in insurance, so we didn't, I'm not a member. We just, we dropped it.
We didn't need it anymore because the whole idea of the Burial Society was that it provided funds for burial.
What happened, in one way, the need for these societies began to decrease because the rights of Africans began to increase.
As Fair Hope's membership dwindled and as attendance at the annual celebration grew, some Fair Hope members began to put money before benevolence. Although it was money for some, it would become trouble for most.
The Zimmermans own property in and about there. The Turners own property in and about there. The Joneses back in the wooded area own land there. Paul Graham owned the land. So yes, the land is owned by members of Fair Hope and founders whose grandparents, ancestors if you will, founded Fair Hope Society.
The landowners, they were Fair Hope members, but see, as the children grew up, later on as time passed, the property was passed down to them. Basically what they were concerned about making money. Because a lot of them right now, some of them don't live here, and a lot of them didn't even grow up here, some of the ones now that's in charge of the land.
Well, my name is Sydney Brown. I'm 44, and I'm from Williamsville, New York. Well, my family is from here. My grandmother and my great-grandfather lived here. Our family owns some land that is a big part of the celebration that's about to take place. So I'm down here to help see about our land during this celebration.
So as the time passed, landowners start selling spots for vendors.
They just looking at the money, what they making, to put in our pocket over their property.
Again, it's the dollar. Some people do anything for a dollar.
It became a money thing. It goes from a family gathering or good timing out, a day out to enjoy your family, to get wasted, to eat the fish sandwiches, to do whatever else, to meet up with your girlfriend. Those were the kinds of things that would happen. Two, now, we want to make more money, so we've got to do something different. So we, number one, are going to change the name. We're not going to be, this part of it is not going to be Fair Hope. It's going to be Foot Wash.
I left here, and when I left, it wasn't no Foot Wash, it was Fair Hope Benevolent Society. And when I came back, it was the Foot Wash.
My husband was named Frank Moses Coleman.
These two fellows is Frank Coleman, Emmanuel Graham. They wanted to name it Foot Wash, and they wanted to go and register that Foot Wash.
And so they went and got a patent number. And after they got the patent number, they just named it Foot Wash.
It's called Foot Wash, but it has nothing to do with Foot Wash.
The tradition of foot washing, as I understand it, comes about because of the primitive Baptist emphasis on washing each other's feet.
Jesus did with his disciples and washing their feet and letting them know that service is important and humility, being humble and washing feet is what Jesus wants us to be.
But they never wash no feet out there. The name really is Fair Hope Christian Benevolent Society. That's the other people that named it Foot Wash. It's not no Foot Wash.
This pavement one here was only a dirt road. When you walked out of here, you needed your feet washed and everything else washed on you because it was so dusty.
I think it would be a marketing tool. Maybe that would be a more popular name, foot wash, than what it actually is. Benevolent Society, or whatever, you know.
And so people from all over would come in for the foot wash. We are 3 generations of new people away from what the elders started, moved out, ventured out into all parts of this country, did not have use for the barrier, did not have use for the home care, did not know anything, the history. We do not know our history.
And the further you got removed from the history, the further the people and the generations that followed got removed from the purpose and the mission. Therefore, it's something totally different.
At first, they would just sell like sandwiches and things like that out there. Okay, and over the years, it has grown to where you can just buy anything, including sex. Right.
It's a sign of the times. You can feel it in the air. You can see it on the faces of people everywhere. You can hear it on the street.
Next Sunday is foot wash. Somebody ought to say amen. Amen.
Lord, I do believe there's a devil on the loose.
Whatever you want to do, this is the place.
Cause having babies too young.
What kind of girls? You get strippers, you get good girls, you get bad girls, you get some girl that just wants you on one time. You feel what I'm saying?
Mothers praying, worried, crying that their babies out there dying.
It make me feel bad, sad for what I see be going on out there.
Yes, there's a devil on the loose. There's a devil going wild. There's a devil on the loose.
I think pussy sells faster than crack cocaine.
I wonder what I'd look like if I had a strip coming up through here like that and walking down the street.
And just working hard for the souls of people like me and you.
Women are walking around with very few clothes on and look like trying to entice men with maybe by their bodies.
They ride around with nothing but little strings on, laying over on the hood of a truck, riding in the bed of the truck. I done saw that with my own eyes.
There is a time and a place for everything. Nakedness is something for the bathtub.
There was a man out there in the woods with a tent. You know, it had young women to, you know, do the prostitutes, and had the men come in and they did what, you know.
There were people who thought I was some kind of pimp or whatever the case may be, and that's not me at all. What I did was I saw an opportunity to make some money.
Having Magic as an employer, it's a trip. We have fun though, but at the same time, you know, we have rules and things have to be done the way they're supposed to be done.
With any job, you have your ups and downs, so it's
but
just...
mostly it's fun with him though.
Yeah.
I don't personally get attached to any of the ladies that work for me because I'm not pimping them. I'm not here to make a 10-year employee. I'm here so that we can be profitable together.
I went to the foot wash to make me some money.
Yes, we made money. We made good money. We made
nice amounts of money.
At the foot wash 2010, Alabama.
Why would you come here?
To make money.
What kind of money?
A lot of money.
I detest exploiting the black woman. There's too much of that in this society today.
Way in the back, they got the strippers, because that's what I heard it was about, and I wanted to go see. I spent my little dollars, I watched them dance, I did a little touching, and I had a good time.
Where'd you touch?
On the camera, straight up. On their titties, on their pussies, on their ass.
I have seen marijuana being sold. I've also crack cocaine being sold at the foot wash. I remember I was standing beside a tent. I thought it was maybe a prostitution tent. He told me, he said, no, they're selling crack in here.
Well, they actually got
a table, you can go sample drugs, man. That's crazy to me, you know. You can go sample the drug before you buy them.
Word had gotten out that you could come up here to the foot wash, do anything you want to do. So they took advantage of this.
I've seen a lot of interesting stuff in the last couple of hours.
It can also be a very wholesome environment where you can come and buy arts and crafts. You can buy a whole lot of items that you might not necessarily buy in your everyday goings about in life.
I quit going to the foot wash because of the open sale of drugs, the open sale of sex, the potential for violence, guns, Uzis, and all of those kinds of things.
I've seen AK-47s, I've seen shotguns, pistols. There's not a gun that you can name that I have not seen down there. And I've actually seen people just firing their weapons in the air, just shooting.
Well, they walk around like they the Wild Wild West with the guns in the hands and then on the side of them and all like that.
You know we have gambling, shooting, killing.
Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, we had a little shooting at the foot wash. And a guy got killed, and we need to get some out of him to this man.
Guy got what?
Killed, got shot in the head.
52-year-old Claude Lloyd was shot while he was sitting in his SUV at the setup of the annual Foot Wash Festival. That's in the Hill County community of Greer.
And ambulance drivers were scared to actually go up in there and be able to get the person because the threat of violence had increased.
Prior to last year, we had numerous crimes going on. Being a small county, we only had 5 deputies. And with the maybe 100,000 people that might show up here, I had no way of preventing any crime. At that time, I invited the troopers in to help.
State investigators, state troopers will be out in force this weekend in West Alabama. A spokesman tells Fox 6 News that more than 150 troopers will be policing Hale County's Foot Wash Festival.
They just out here just for show.
Wait till they leave by 2 o'clock in the morning. And then you can see the freaks come out at night.
Dinglings, and all that flank around here.
Keep it clean when it's on the Jerry
I'm
show.
just telling him the truth.
You know, law enforcement is not here to stop the foot wash. We're just here to make sure that it's a safe family atmosphere.
They was really just, walking outside of the tents, making sure that everything was okay, keeping everybody safe. They was like pretty much invisible. They didn't really bother nobody or didn't mess with none of the tents.
Oh, state troopers been fine. They don't bother you. Whatever you do in here, it stays in here, like Las Vegas. Whatever's happening in Vegas, it stays in Vegas. Same thing here. As long as you don't go outside this gate, you fine. Whatever you do in here, handle your business. Enjoy yourself.
Our main objective is safety within the public area. All the tents and whatever they have set up, we don't go inside those.
Like I said, they walk around through the woods, the road, and everywhere,
Who walks around?
The state troopers. And so I'm sure they walk past those places and see the activity going on. And I did state maybe that's the reason they don't demand it to stop, or that they enjoy seeing it too.
If you're not going inside the tents, then how do you know if there's illegal activity going on?
Well, there's a lot of good citizens in Hale County, and they report illegal activity. And I'm sure at some point, if it was the way you said, that we would find out. I definitely support the state trooper presence, as long as they're not being intrusive, going into people's tents, as long as they're just strictly out here as a security presence. I fully support it because they were helpful to me.
Are you okay with the state troopers just serving as security and not stopping the illegal activity at the foot wash?
I wish they would, and I wish it would better, though. I wish a lot of that stuff that go on wouldn't go on, but, who am I,
It's not nothing that couldn't be stopped if they want it stopped.
You're allowing them to do it. If you don't want the prostitutes there or the drugs, then don't rent the land, and you won't have it.
Not all of the vendors are upfront about what they're going to do.
So I don't believe that the landowners are responsible for what the vendors do, because they can tell you one thing and do something else. Once the land is rented, we're not the police that we have to watch them close-eyed to see what they're doing. So I don't believe that that would be the responsibility of the landowners.
If I own some land, I should know exactly what's going on my property. As a result, I think landowners are more responsible than anybody else.
They could bring anything in, but you don't know what they're bringing in, but they don't rent a booth from you. My husband put up there, no be a whisker allowed on his property. But that don't mean they're not coming and do it. But you can't do, all these different people's coming in.
They should have sense enough and feeling not to have all that kind of stuff going on their property. But they're doing it for money, for the dollar.
What do you think is going on in the woods?
Well, I figured they were down there having their barbecue and drinking. Now, to be honest with you, I have never seen any of these activities that I hear go on down there. But I have a belief that it does.
I rent my space from Miss Burks, and she is a character.
Aura Burks?
Miss Orly Burks is who I rent my space from. No, I'm not here to sell purses, hats, or shoes, and I don't think it really matters to her. I think she wants to get what's hers, and I think she just pretty much allows it to be what it is. I'm comfortable with her, she's comfortable with me. We have a good working relationship. She always coming around asking, if she does come around, she's asking me, is everything okay, baby?
I'm going to say, well, check with Miss Bush. She's a very nice person and everything. And like I said, I can relate to all of, even the ones who are walking around and they're in front of the vendors or something like that. I said, look, get out of the way with that mess with my vendors or whatever. Oh, that's Mama. Mama, come on, man, come on.
I mean, it's almost like she treats me like another child of hers, and I like that. I like that a lot.
I think they have the right to lease or rent their land to anyone.
It's their land, and of course in America, they have a right to do anything with the land that they choose, but I think if their ancestors were alive today, and if they knew the suffering that their ancestors endured, they would not dare desecrate that land with what I call the new type of slavery. See, there's different kinds of slavery. We were physically enslaved for hundreds of years, but this new type of slavery is a slavery of the mind, a mental slavery, which is the most dangerous type of slavery. Because when you're so removed from the greatness of your past and your ancestors, and you could take land that was won through blood, sweat, and tears and turn it into grounds for prostitution and drugs, then you have bought into the new type of slavery.
So many people do not know anything about this religious aspect of it. They don't even know we have service over there.
Speaking in behalf of the Fair Hope Benevolent Society, we welcome you here. We are here to celebrate our 122nd annual anniversary. But we want you to know, we're not only here to celebrate that, we're here every fourth Sunday. And if anytime you want to come by and wish it with us, please feel free to do so. And we're also looking for new members, so you can always come back.
Will you be interested in coming to the religious ceremony at Foot Wash?
Not with the work that I do, no.
With my intentions on going down there, I really wouldn't feel comfortable going to a religious tent because it's like a conflict of interest.
Won't it be grand? Won't it be grand? Won't it be grand? Won't it be grand? I'm going home to live with Jesus. Won't it be grand? Oh, won't it be grand? Won't it be grand?
I would think that the ones who were coming in here were the individuals who geared toward thinking more or less in a heavenly manner, and the others don't care.
Oh, when you really from staying around here.
Long time ago, that's how it started out. It was a spiritual thing, like with church people, but it just turned into this. I don't know how it turned into all this.
So where are the church-going Bible-reading folks? I don't see them out here.
Not out here. You think they'll come out here? Oh, no. Us kind of folks ran them away.
They're going to be out here on Sunday. There's a religious ceremony.
It is?
Yeah, for like the last 120-some years.
Y'all knew that. I didn't know that.
Did you know they've had religious services out here for like the last 120-something years?
No, never heard of it.
This is the devil part of it. It didn't go on years ago, and they don't see it as a spiritual. It was kind of the devil, not of God.
There is a heaven side and a hell side to Fair Hope Benevolent Society, quote, foot wash.
Look like they're about to let the hell part take the heaven part.
Which side will you be on? Yes, sir. Which side will you be on?
Father, we thank you for the service that has been given here today, Father. Father, we pray for this membership, for this society, Father, that you would increase the membership, that you would just continue to bless this organization, Father. These and many other blessings we ask in your darling Son, Jesus' name. Now may the grace of the Lord and the sweet communion of the Holy Spirit rest, rule, and abide, henceforth and forevermore. And let us all say,
A lot of people are able to come down here and make money, and not a lot is really going back into the Benevolent Society itself. I feel like if we had a select group of vendors who were coming down every year and everybody was pooling money or doing something to try and upgrade the Benevolent Society itself, that it would be more operational, it would be more known.
They should give a portion of what they're making, because had it not been for this organization, then they would not be making it, like I said.
They said they wasn't giving the society a dime to come over to their property.
Not even a dime.
Wasn't going to give them a dime.
You asked me whether or not I believe the landowners need to have obligation to give a portion of their monetary compensation back to the Fair Hope Benevolent Society. And I would say that no, I think that's free will.
What about a moral obligation?
I don't think so.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with making money. And in this particular community, God knows we needed some money to be made. Did you not know that people in here, in this area, earn something like $14,000 to $20,000 a year? This is the only way they can make money, the people in here. How much money is going out of the community as opposed to staying in the community?
Most of the money that's derived from the foot wash leaves the community. We have people that come in from four-way, and they buy spots, sections of land to sell their product or their services. And besides the money that they pay that property owner, those few dollars for the use of that space, all the money that's derived from whatever they sell, none of that money is not taxed, but all of that money leaves the community, so we don't get the benefit of it.
I have absolutely no issue with donating a portion of my profits every year to the Benevolent Society, because that, without all of that, that's history, and without all of that, there would be no Magic or Magic's Entertainment. There would be no foot wash.
They need money, no question about that. So if vendors, drug dealers, or whomever would contribute money to the society, I think it would be worthwhile.
But I'm wondering that the founders of the Benevolent Society, would they not consider this as tainted money?
My concern is that as a community, we become organized, that the community is a part of this thing. We want to make the profit, we want to observe the laws. We want to do the thing that is right and upstanding. And how do we do that?
The problem with trying to do some of these other things is nobody's in charge. of the foot wash.
Somebody has to take charge. Maybe the landowners, the people who are still have the mission and vision of the Fair Hope Society, and they're going to die off soon. So those who are left, it has to be done during their lifetime.
When Fair Hope members and landowners agreed to meet in a roundtable forum to discuss the future of Fair Hope, tensions were high.
Whatever y'all think to do, because it left with me, I just fly my place up with soybeans in it, or some corn, or some cotton, or some grain stock, and just go and just let it go. Y'all are up north somewhere here, different in Alabama, down here in the woods.
A landowner cannot lease property for the purpose of criminal activities. And prostitution, drug dealing, gun selling are all criminal activities. If the landowner leases the property, knows the purpose for which it is going to be used, or should know, and given the reputation about what is going on at these foot wash celebrations, it's going to be hard for you to prove that you shouldn't have known what was going on. Then the law can take that property from the landowner.
How could you know what these people are bringing in and putting on their table? You can't examine them. When they come and set their table up, you don't know what they're doing and what they're putting on there.
But if you are out there and see what's going on, then you are responsible.
You can stop.
Yes.
If we had been bound ourselves together and stuck together, all this wouldn't have happened. But we need somebody to help.
Yeah.
Come here, not talk it, come do something.
Well, I did tell my husband passed and I don't have a way to travel.
Huh?
I did until my husband passed.
Well, I ain't talking about you, baby. You long there with me, a little old man. So I'm talking about we need some young folks or something.
I would suggest that it would be appropriate for you to consider incorporating, setting up a charitable corporation. And once you do that, then you will be in a position to apply for grants for any kinds of projects that you might wish to set up.
Now, most burial societies are out of existence now. I'm just glad to know that Fair Hope is still in existence. If Fair Hope would evolve to meet the needs of this community, then it will survive.
Fair Hope is still surviving because of the individuals that's still involved in it. They have a love for what their ancestors started, and there has to be someone to come after this group if it's gonna continue to survive.
My four parents, they were members of it, and I think it's a good organization. I have seen the good works of it. The society is still needed. Recently, my grandfather passed. Because he was a member of the society, we were able to receive benefits to help go towards his burial.
If you die, he'll give you $1,000. Well, you know, that just goes so far now.
Members seem to be falling off so bad. I don't know how they're still going on, but by the grace of God, they're still being able to pay that $1,000 that they promised they would pay.
They don't go around and see the sick no more. They don't aid the sick no more.
Back then, it was a lot of older people, but they have died now, and so there's very few members now. We need to get more members in.
The future is at a disaster unless something is done, because like our officers are up in age.
It has survived because of the people and the community. But to this point now, it's kind of getting where most of these people are kind of dying off. And it's at a state now where I'm very concerned about doing something to take it to the next 100 years that would be appropriate for the 21st century.
I wonder, does the Fair Hope Benevolent Society have a website? I wonder, does the Fair Hope Benevolent Society have a Facebook page? We're in a whole new generation now. And in order to be known, you have to market yourself and you have to put yourself out there. I think that the Benevolent Society has potential. However, just staying the way that they are right now, I'm not sure.
These youngsters not gonna do nothing now.
Since I've been coming to the foot wash myself, not one member of the Benevolent Society has come to me asking or knocking at the door saying, who owns this tent? What do you do here? Well, let me tell you what happened prior to you coming here. Let me tell you the origin about the foot wash. That's never happened. If I didn't research it on my own, I wouldn't have known myself.
I think the Fair Hope Benevolent Society has survived because it lost sight of its purpose and its mission. If it had adhered to that purpose and that mission, you would not have thousands of people coming there. It became a social event, an entertainment event. But if it had maintained its purpose, like other African American institutions that tried to hold on to their vision and their purpose, those institutions rarely survive.
On March 26, 2011, after 123 years of aiding the sick and burying the dead, the Fair Hope Benevolent Society rededicated itself to benevolence and became a bona fide 501c3 charitable organization. Surviving Fair Hope members, state officials, friends, supporters, and even Magic were on hand to celebrate.
Happy to be here once more in your presence for the Fair Hope Benevolent Society's rededication to benevolence. Truly, God has been good to us.
That's right.
And I'm sure while you're sitting there, most of you are reminiscing of how long this organization has been in progress.
Before I begin my remarks, I do wish to recognize, I was shocked to see someone on the third row. I want him to stand. That's my son, Benjamin. You are now the trustees of a great organization. You're about to revive and become what you ought to become in order to be effective in the 21st century.
This side had come from a long way. Long, long way. Many of them had been a member of this side, but you called the name today, they won't be able to answer and live off the land. But God will get so good to we all till he gave us another chance. Amen. I come a long way, yeah. I come a long way. I share my burden in the heat of the day, believing that the Lord will make it all right. I have hard cry, yeah. I come a long way, and sometimes burn on, and I come a long way.
And I'm going to ask the incorporators, those who are here, to come forward now and sign the incorporation papers. Mr. E.D. Zinnerman, Mr. Arthur Turner, and Ms. Carrie Ann Harris.
It was good any time, you know.
It shows the mindset of our ancestors, that they were able to take pennies and do what we can't do now with $100 bills. They realize the benefit of people working together, what happens when we pool our resources, no matter how small they are, that we can accomplish whatever needs to be accomplished. That's what we can glean from the Fair Hope Burial Society.
But an ever-changing world caught up with Fair Hope and passed it by. As the sun begins to set on one of the last functioning benevolent societies in America, one question remains. Is a rededication ceremony enough to save Fair Hope?
And I'm a member of Fair Hope. And I plan on staying a member there until the Lord come and get me. I'm gonna live
sing about in my song. I'm gonna stand